Hello, it's Cindy from the Osterville Library, and today we have a very special treat with Gloria Hanson. She is an amazing woman who has had a varied career from teaching to counseling to being an author, and just being a very active, inquisitive person, it seems, all through her life. So first, Gloria, I'd like to welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you
And
for
then,
having me.
yeah, we're so happy you could make it. And wanted to talk to you about your latest book because I think it's so important right now with everything going on. It's called Coping, Embracing Change and Loss. And what made you decide to write this book? And then tell us a little bit about the book and how it relates to today's times.
Okay. Well, at my age, uh, I've experienced quite a few changes and losses. For example, 2 years ago, in 2018, I made a big move from my home in Cleveland, Ohio, where I had lived for over 30 years, and moved to Cape Cod to be near my daughter and son-in-law, who promised that they would take care of me when I can't take care of myself. So that was a good deal. I figured I'm not going to get that many deals like that. So I I had lost my husband of 53 years in 2014, and I decided to uh, go through all of this stuff that we had accumulated over those years and move to Cape Cod. And so I'm now living in Cape Cod. And so I when I came here, I did a lot of reading because I didn't know a lot of people. And one of the most important books I read was a book by Louise Aronson called Elderhood. Because I was thinking to myself about how many changes had occurred in my life and the losses that I've experienced of family and friends. And so I read that book and it influenced me greatly because she had some major themes in the book, one of which was the kind of prejudice against senility. You know, we're all encouraged to look and feel and think young. And she made a big deal out of saying, that people should look upon this as an opportunity in life. Because, as she points out, many of us, beginning at age 60, will be in elderhood for maybe 30 or 40 years.
Wow.
And so we ought to make the best of it.
Wow.
And so I started, after reading that book, then I started going to the library and reading articles and watching movies about older people. And so I decided to consult with my muse, and she and I came up with a way to incorporate all of this data, I call it data, from all of these sources into a book that people might be willing to read, because it could be a story. It wasn't going to be a journalistic endeavor. It was going to be a kind of fiction, but a fiction in which there is a lot of information that was gathered by many people. So I started working on this book called Coping, Embracing Change and Loss. Yep, that's it. And so I had been, do you want me to say a little bit about my?
Yeah.
Okay. I had always written as a teenager, but then work and family got in the way, and I would write, but sporadically. But then my husband became ill with chronic lymphocytic leukemia. And so, of course, we had a lot of stay at home time because he could not be influenced by the germs that he could catch after chemotherapy. So I started writing a book, and this book was, my first book was on a creative nonfiction book about my mother, who had been an immigrant from Italy when she was 15 years old. And it told her story of her life through the changes that occurred in her family and in the world at large. So I thought, I'm too old to go looking for a publisher, you know, and face negativity and rejection. So I met a friend in Cleveland who was an author and also a publisher, and she introduced me to CreateSpace, which is the publishing arm of Amazon. And so she and I worked on the book, the first book, and on many more. So we worked. She helped me with editing. She helped me with putting it online in the proper format. And so I was off and running. There isn't much money to be made by someone like me. I am not good at marketing myself. So I wait maybe until after my demise to be discovered.
After this video, you'll be famous.
Oprah's next, right?
Yeah. You never know.
You never know. So I can tell you a little bit about the book. You want me to go into talking about the book? Yeah. Okay. I wanted to integrate a lot of different themes in the book. As I said, I wanted to make it kind of interesting so that people would read it, but they'd also learn some things about change and loss and how we cope with those factors as we age. And one of the main themes that I wanted to integrate was that all the different types of losses that people experience, from the loss of hearing, the loss of eyesight, the loss of hair, the loss of mobility, to greater losses like the complete loss of health, or the loss of a spouse, or the loss of children. So that was one of the major themes that ran under the main theme of exploring loss and change. And then also along with this, I felt it was important to see how different people cope with change and loss, because as I watched my family and friends, I discovered that there are many different types of coping strategies, some of which don't pertain to me personally, but there's a wide variety of coping strategies. The third theme that I wanted to explore was the theme of relationships within the family and between generations, and how they how these relationships influence how a person copes with change and loss. One of the main themes of this book is the relationship between the main character, who is called Noreen, who is a research professor at a university, who gets a federal grant to study coping strategies of seniors. So she has a mother, her father died, and she has a mother who is dealing with her own changes and losses. And one of the themes of the book is this relationship between mother and daughter. And then there's the relationship of the main character, Noreen, and her handsome graduate student, Jeffrey. I had to put in a little bit of romance into, to make it a little interesting. So that was my other theme. And then, of course, there's then the other theme was the role of health, exploring the different ways that people suffered in becoming older. Some of them minor losses and some of them major losses. And so, for example, some of the characters in the book, including Noreen's mother, Irene, suffered from a stroke and she suffered from dementia. Other characters like Donald Turner suffered from Parkinson's. Others suffered from a little narcissism, So that was another theme that that I wanted to explore, and I did that mainly by writing about these different relationships and losses, and having a series of interviews. 12 interviews, live interviews by the researchers, Noreen and Jeffrey, of the people throughout Ohio and Pennsylvania, because this story took place in Ohio, and interviewing them about the changes and the losses that they had experienced. So those were main themes. One of the biggest themes is the onset of dementia in many of the people who were interviewed, and also I thought it was important to explore the role of socioeconomic factors in how people cope with change and loss. And finally, the final theme was acceptance. How do people come to terms with all the changes? How do they face disability, loss of health, and death? So those were my major themes.
That's quite a lot. So just so people know, this book is going to be available at the Osterville Library. And I think it's, very important right now to see how other people are dealing with these things, because sometimes we feel our own emotions are only ours, and sometimes other people share them, and just to know that you're not alone in these feelings and you're not the first person to experience this is helpful in getting the help that you may need, because it is a very trying time.
Yes, there is also an undercurrent there of the researchers trying to help some of their interviewees in getting help. For example, in getting a parent into an assisted living or a skilled nursing facility, and the difficulties that brings to a family. That's an undercurrent and another theme that you brought up.
So I want to bring up one last thing here, is like, just so people can see, this isn't Gloria's first rodeo. We've got 8 of her books here at the library. And I think it's amazing. I see some of these you've enjoyed the Cape Cod Writers Group as part of a help for you to do your writing and things. And you obviously keep enjoying and doing it. And I know a lot of people put off some of their more creative side, like art and writing. And now is a good time in life, if you're looking to something to fill an empty spot, to do these more creative outlets. And you managed to publish this book. This is a 2020 book. So you just published this. So there's really, you take all the excuses. There are no excuses.
Well, it takes a little bit of discipline, but once you get into it, the characters come alive. And so you're never kind of alone in your room. You have all these characters walking around in your head. So it's kind of exciting to do that.
That is. So Gloria, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add today?
Well, I would like to say that the Cape Cod Writers Group is an excellent group. We started at the Centerville Library under the guidance of Sharon Anderson, and we have moved to the Zoom, and we meet every Monday from 1 to 3. So if anybody's interested in joining us, what we do is we share our writing, and then we get feedback, mostly positive feedback, but important feedback, so that we can hone our skills.
Oh, good.
And also we can utilize the skills of Ms. Anderson to help self-publish these books. Because it's not an easy thing, but it's quite doable.
Right. Well, that's good. That's a lot of great information. And I thank you so much for taking the time today to talk with us. And hopefully, again, we can do this in the future.
Thank you very much. I'll call you when I write my next book.
I hope so.
Thank you, Cindy.